What is up, Digital Bromads? We are here with our friend and client, Ryan Audy, for the second time. He's out here with us in Egypt, and he's got some cool stuff we've been talking about. For a while now, he has, really wanted like this digital, we'll call it the digital bromad lifestyle for a while, even before he met us, and like just the stars kind of aligned. And he is, very slowly but surely getting actually fast. It was pretty fast. It was like within four. You did your 4 month trip, and then you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. So not even slowly and surely, he's jumping straight into it head first. And I love to just like ask him some questions, and we can talk about what that looks like for anybody else that's kind of interested in becoming a nomad or just traveling more, or like how do you do that and work. You hear us talk a lot about this crap, but we like to bring in other people who are like trying to build out the lifestyle as well. So Ryan, I'm gonna kick it over to you, man. Like, you want to give us a little intro of yourself and like talk about what this evolution has looked like for you in the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ryan Audy. I'm a piano coach and soon-to-be digital nomad. And I've always loved the idea of traveling the world, not just like 2 or 3 places outside of the US, but like really getting to see the world. And I guess in my early mid-20s, I had the opportunity to internationally travel here and there, but ultimately, I was just starting my career as a full-time musician. And the reality was that I just didn't have the finances to justify it. Cut to last winter, went on the 4-month solo trip that you alluded to, and it really, really made it clear as day to me that I wanted to do this full time, and the stars kind of just aligned, and I met you guys, joined the Artistpreneur program. You guys helped me create my high ticket offer as a piano coach. And yeah, all of that, working with you guys, creating my online business was all in an effort to transition to being nomadic, being able to make money remotely rather than being tethered down to, one particular place. So it's hard to believe, but in a month from now, I'm going to officially begin the journey as a full-time nomad. As you guys know, the last few months I've been kind of doing it part-time, traveling to Istanbul, working with you guys. Now I'm here. But as of November 1st, I'm going to be without a lease and just going to be living out of a suitcase for the indefinite future. And I feel like I should be a little bit more scared than I actually am. The thought of not knowing when I'm going to like settle down in like one particular location is kind of weird to me, but I think more than anything it's like really exciting to think about like the fact that the rest of this journey as a nomad, as a piano coach, is really an open road at this point.
Yeah, I feel like going into that jump, kind of going through that myself as well, like to me, there's like two sides of the fear. Is like one side is the fear of the business because you're doing it yourself. For you specifically, you're an artistpreneur. You're working for yourself as opposed to just like getting a remote working job. It's just like what the fear one is like, is this business going to be sustainable? Am I going to be able to do this? What if my clients run out? And then the other fear is just like the fear of just you're doing it solo, like travel, like not necessarily that you have. Just I feel like a lot of nomads experience, like which one of those do you feel like you said you're not fearful. I'm sure there's a little bit of hint of just like what if, like which side would you say that you were mainly on, and like how did you get over that or acknowledge it?
Oh yeah, I would definitely say there is, without a doubt, some fear, right? And I think for me, it is a little bit more the business side, especially whereas like my business is really kind of still in an infancy stage, right? And I think what's helped me kind of get over that fear, A, is having a plan, like having some money saved up, and B, just kind of the track record I have so far of being able to attain clients each month pretty consistently, and knowing that, worst case scenario, if I have a slow month or two, that I've established a plan for the worst case scenario to be able to survive those months. Yeah. But yeah, for me, I would say the solo travel aspect, I think that's what I'm less afraid of, mostly because I had that experience a year ago traveling for 4 months by myself. I went from never having gone on a solo trip ever to just randomly deciding to go to 8 countries for 4 months by myself. And back then I was definitely scared shitless by the solo aspect. But having experienced that, I think that took a lot of the fear away for me.
Yeah. What about you, Willie? I know, you jumping into it as well. It's like you were working with you were working with Artistpreneur, you were working with us, and it's like you were pretty fearless to me on the travel side. So was it more of the business, or was there a little bit of like, oh shit, I'm doing this completely by myself?
Yeah, I think it was the latter, actually. Yeah, I think at this point, and even then, I understood and really analyzed like what it took to make the minimal amount. Like my lifestyle in Chicago, like I come from a very small town, 30,000 people. Like I remember paying $500 in rent was crazy to me. Like nobody in that town at that time was paying something so high. Even my parents were like, "What are you doing?" Because their mortgages are so cheap. Right? And so I knew what minimally I needed to make, and I lowered my lifestyle from a $5,000 on average month in Chicago, which is pretty typical, 4 to 5K, like in big city, like that's normal, down to like 2,000, 1,500, and I knew it was really possible. I was more afraid, I think, of, while I was like a lone wolf in Chicago sometimes. Like I knew how to carve my own path. I did that by leaving the small town and coming to Chicago. That's a huge fucking jump. I don't know a single other person that did that. You know what I mean? Like if I needed to replicate the business, I felt like I knew enough information that I could just probably build something that could sustain a very minimal amount. Like maybe not as confident as I am now on that, but for sure I knew that underlying. I just like didn't know what the hell I was getting myself into. Like I flew to Africa. Like I don't even know anybody who had been to Africa at that point. Like I had no knowledge of the continent itself, no knowledge of a city, just seen pictures and things. Like I didn't know, were they going to speak good English? Like I knew they spoke English, but I didn't know how I was going to converse. I'd never used a lot of the tools. I didn't do any research. Like what does it take to get a personality for a good digital nomad? I was just like, whatever. And then just started meeting people right after left. And it was consistent. I think that fear went away really quickly. Like there's no thought about it. Like I traveled a little bit like you when I was younger. I kind of had a little bit of confidence, but at the end of the day, I mean, it was amazing how easily I settled into it so fast. That was the crazy piece. You know what I mean? You probably experienced somewhat of that too. I mean, we went to some countries right away that you had already been to. You started familiar, but imagine yourself just like starting in Morocco. Like how much of a culture shock that is, and alone, yeah. But that like pushes you outside of your boundaries, outside of your comfort zone, because then you have to meet people. Otherwise, you just stay inside. I mean, just like there are two types of people who travel the world. There's vacationers and travelers. I think there's two types of people that also would do well and not do well when it comes down to solo travel. Some people are very nervous about, I think, getting outside of their comfort zone, talking to new people. But then there's other people who are, I'm like extroverted and introverted. Like I love my personal space, but like I have no problem going out to talk to people. It's perfectly fine. I think I just embody that. I can get down and work during the day and not have to talk to anybody, thoroughly enjoy my nights in. But also at the same time, like, run it. Like, let's go match with a few people or go out to the bar and talk to some random people after a couple of beers. Like, you're fine. Like, it's great. You know what I mean?
So Ryan, back to kind of your situation. What's the plan for 2025? Like, when are you making this jump? As of the recording of this video, what's on the docket? What's planned? What's not planned? Kind of walk us through your digital nomadic brain and what's coming up for you.
Yeah, so my plan is basically, at the start of November, I'm going to officially make the jump to being full-time digitally nomadic, starting my journey in Peru. And for the next year or so, my plan is to kind of just country hop in Latin America. Particularly some countries on my list, aside from Peru, are Argentina, Colombia, Bolivia, and Chile, so on and so forth. During the summer, the plan as of now is to go back to my home in Maine, play some shows with my band, spend some time with family. And then from there, probably about this time next year in like September, my tentative plan is to go to Europe. Hopefully by then my online business has scaled to the point where I can afford a little bit more of a richer lifestyle, because of course, things are a little bit more costly in Europe than in Latin America. But the truth of it is that, like, I'm still just kind of figuring it out. I'm just figuring out as I go. After Peru, I don't even know where I'm going to go next.
Where do you want to go in Europe?
So particularly in Europe, I know for sure Italy is, like, high up on the list. Definitely want to go back to Spain, spend some more time there. I really only got to go to Barcelona, Valencia, and Madrid, and I was only there for like 10 days when I went a year ago. So definitely want to spend like a full 3 months in Spain. Possibly Germany, mostly because I have some friends out there. And aside from that, man, yeah, I haven't really thought that far yet. Just kind of, again, figuring it out as I go.
What I was going to ask was that something in your mind when you chose Latin America? Was it the cost effectiveness? Well, I know you also speak other languages. Like, what made you? Of course, you went. You had a little excursion over there before, a couple. Like, what brought you to Latin America first? Like, what were the factors that made you decide this?
Sure, yeah. So I've always had like a admiration for Latin American culture. I started learning Spanish about 2 years ago. It was really a trip to Costa Rica that inspired my desire to learn Spanish. So there was definitely that factor. I wanted to go to another place where English wasn't the main language. And aside from like the economic factor, the culture, the fact that it's warm year round in some of the places that I'm going to, that's a big, it's a big thing for me. It's kind of a huge like motivational factor for me, is like getting to escape Maine winters, which tend to be kind of cold and dark and dry. But aside from all that, a big sort of pragmatic factor for me is like the time zone, because most of my clients are U.S. based, so it's going to be very easy to work and just kind of continue doing business as usual. When I move over to Europe, I'm going to, kind of need to account for the time zone difference and do kind of what you guys are doing currently. Do a little bit of some later nights, right? So,
yeah, cool. Awesome, dude. Did you have any specific questions for him about that?
No, dude. I mean, we've kind of talked extensively. That was the one I was most interested in, is like where he's going.
Yeah.
I think you'll find that, or at least for me, that I don't know where I'm going to be 6 months from now is going to be very stressful. Because a lot of these places, and anybody listening to this can probably take this piece of information as useful. It's like you want to plan as far ahead as you can. Getting all of that stuff out of the way, we try to live, 4 to 6 months in advance consistently. This is not just like having it picked out, but having it booked. Because, for instance, going to Italy, I don't know where you want to go, you can tell us, but if you're even going to touch Rome, in order to get a place that's going to be affordable and the place that you can stay for that long, you're gonna need to look 6 months in advance. It's going to be hard otherwise. If you go, like Budapest is another one that you'd probably want to look far in advance, like the major cities, London and Paris. And, if you go back to any of the ones in Spain, I'm sure 10 days is one thing, but when you want to stay there 3 months, you're either going to pay a lot of money because so many of them are booked, or you're going to move around in different spots, which is different. I mean, it's possible. We do it sometimes, but it's inconvenient as hell. It's so inconvenient, and you gotta like consistently live out of your suitcase because you barely want to unpack if you're there for 3 weeks to a month. If you're there for 3 months, like put the stuff in the drawers in the closet. Like, it's fine, great. Now I'm actually living. You get to know the coffee shop, you get to know the supermarkets, you get to know whatever in the neighborhood. If you're moving around every month and a half, 2 months to a month, like. And that it's just hard, so planning out as far as you can go. I mean, Evan and I at this point, I think we probably know where we're at this time next year, which is something we had to grow, but it's otherwise it's stressful. You take so much time on Airbnb and all these travel sites, like it's going to eat up so much effort just doing not only the research to find the places and the things to do and the neighborhoods to be in, but what country do you want to go to? Because really the world is your oyster, you know what I mean? Like you can go wherever, and if you really like comprehend that, maybe that, I don't know if it's soaked in yet, but like you can literally go anywhere. Like right. You can pretty much do it, damn near everything, and that's crazy. So it's like, well, okay, great, I know I want to live in Europe, but Europe's fucking huge. Right. There's so many cool places that are under the radar that you could go to in Europe. Right? It's like narrowing that down, and that's going to take time. And then it's going to take time to do the research into that city about where to stay, like what neighborhood. And then it's going to take even more to figure out the popular areas that you want to stay in. Do you want to stay in a quiet street? Do you want to stay in more lively spaces? Like, you don't want to be too far away where you always have to Uber or take a car, so you want to figure out where the stuff's at. Evan and I have learned this the hard way. It's like, don't go too far away from the spots you want to go to. If you want to go to the restaurants and the bars, like, stay relatively close to them. Otherwise, you just won't go. And all of this takes fucking time. That's the one piece of advice to keep you a little more stress-free I would try to say. Like, do your research, get ahead of it as much as you possibly can. You'll thank yourself later. Yeah, yeah. So it's like, I recommend Budapest. Italy's really cool. You can do Florence, and I even think, like, if you could do it, I don't know what it would cost, but, like, dude, a month in Venice or some shit like that would probably be super unique. Yeah, you definitely want to go over towards Amar, Galicia. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see your experience with, like, real Spanish, right? Yeah, that's totally different. And what are they Catalan? Yeah, Catalan is what they speak over where Amar's at too, I think. Totally different. Yeah, totally different language. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Europe's fun, dude. I had a lot of fun. Greece is great. Athens is pretty affordable. It's a little rough around the edges, but it's always sunny. And then you have the islands. I think it would be really fun to stay, not in Athens per se, but on one of the islands. You could get Starlink out there and do some cool stuff like that. And I told him this off camera, but I recommend Argentina too. Argentina is great. I mean, the people are super friendly, even though they're experiencing some of the worst economic, kind of culture right now in the world, I think, or one of them. It's really tough down there for regular Argentinians, but food and the nightlife is unlike any other place. It's super cool, man. Yeah, this journey's gonna be awesome. I'm very thankful to be here and to see, like, two dudes, like, doing the stuff that kind of started where it was at. Like, you guys don't have to be fucking scared, because you guys can fucking do it. It's fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like, somebody takes the leap around you. I think that's the whole piece for me, is like, I never imagined other people doing this alongside me when I first started. I had no idea. I just thought, well, I was like, okay, let's do this. Now this is pretty, grown, Papa kind of moment for me. It's like, yeah, these are my kids.
Boys are growing up. Get out of the nest.
Yeah. But let's transition and talk about Egypt. Oh, okay.
We're gonna save that for another episode. So, of course, you're, probably wondering where we're at. You have no idea with those things behind us. But I think this was packed full enough. Let's leave that for the next one. Overall, dude, Ryan's making a big jump. Proud of you. He'll probably be on some more episodes if you want to figure out his journey. Or you can find him at Ryan Audy, Audy, on Instagram. Check him out. He makes some cool shit. Plays a bunch of piano, and now he plays piano in cool places. Well, cool. Thanks for being here. Peace.